Good evening, everyone. If I can have you sit down. I'll now call the joint session between the City Council and Yamhill County Board of Commissioners and MURAC work session meeting to order. I'd like to call on Heather Richards, Community Development Director, to present our topic for tonight.
Great. Thank you, Mayor and City Councilors and Board Chair and County Commissioners and then MURAC members. It's great to see you all here tonight. We're here to sort of start a dialogue about downtown McMinnville and how it serves this community for the next 20 years, and specifically have a dialogue about the properties that both the county and city own in the downtown in that regard. I want to introduce Peter Kircher. He is here as well. He is the chair of MURAC, our McMinnville Urban Renewal Advisory Committee, which advises our city council in their role as the Urban Renewal Board. I'm going to do a short presentation, but this meeting is really an opportunity for you to have discussion and dialogue. We sent out this presentation in advance. It has some prompt questions in it to sort of help with the dialogue as well. Claudia, can you allow me to share? Okay, you should have at your station there a packet of maps as well, which will help us walk through the discussion. The maps show both city-owned properties and Yamhill County-owned properties, as well as other nonprofit properties in the downtown area. But we wanted to talk a little bit about why we are here. So McMinnville's Urban Renewal Agency is going to be embarking on an update to our downtown improvement plan. The last one was adopted in the year 2000. We're calling this Downtown 2045, so a 20-year look at the downtown. And we want to start this effort in the second quarter of this year, so very near term. We want to get a request for qualifications out to select a team to help lead us through this effort. We expect the effort to take about 18 to 24 months and have a lot of community dialogue associated with it. In prepping for this effort, we started looking at the maps and realized that both the city of McMinnville and Yamhill County own many properties in the downtown area, and both agencies have discussed the need to evaluate their downtown property holdings for efficiencies and program delivery. You both have been in that process, perhaps at different points in that process, but the discussion's been taking place for the last couple of years. Each agency is at different phases of their evaluation of their property, but we thought this might be an opportunity to really talk about coordination and strategic next steps. I have here 4 points for the purpose of tonight's meeting, but actually I'm going to turn it over to Peter so he can talk to you about what he would like to see in terms of the purpose of this meeting tonight. Those are the questions.
Turn myself on. Okay. How's that? Good?
Peter, a little
Louder?
A little further down.
Okay.
This is your star moment with the
really.
microphone.
Yeah, I'm not a high-tech guy. Okay. So MURAC's been tasked with the chore of planning for the downtown core and urban renewal areas in the city with this upcoming planning session that we're doing for 2045. We need to get you guys, the county and the city, to inform us on where you want the city to be in 2045. If you can look out 20 years and say, this is what this area of the downtown should look like. This is what the downtown needs to be successful and viable in the next 20 years. If we do these things, it will be a catalyst to push forward the downtown into a more successful downtown than we already have. Maybe that's asking too much, but we have a great downtown now. We want to build on that and move it in the right direction, and that doesn't happen by accident. get a quality program, you need to be planning, you need to understand the challenges, and we can't work with a consultant on a plan like that unless we understand your challenges and where you want the city to be in 20 years. So I know that's not easy, but we want to start the dialogue now, and we want to have an open door where you guys can add your comments and your thoughts at any time during the process. It's a big process. Year and a half is a lot of meetings, but if we start now, we should be on good footing in the next couple of years, okay? So we want you guys to assess the current properties you own downtown. There's a lot of property downtown right now that's off the tax base because it's exempt or it's county or city owned. We need to understand if that's the way, if there's not a better and more dynamic use of those properties in 10 to 20 years, and if some properties are going to grow obsolete in the next couple of years or 10 years, we need to identify those properties so that we can start a plan to move forward on that. We've been working on the Alpine District for, I don't know how long, many years, and it takes a long time to get this stuff to happen. So the sooner we get you guys to give us a vision of where you want to go, the sooner we can move forward on that.
So thank you. We're going to focus tonight on the properties themselves. We'd like to learn a little bit more about your near-term and long-term goals for your property. Discuss shared goals, opportunities, and constraints with properties between the two agencies. Discuss the opportunities to leverage those publicly owned properties for the greater vision of the city center and how it serves McMinnville in future years, and also discuss next steps. So as we go through this, there's the opportunity as we go through our planning process to talk about the boundaries of the urban renewal area, to talk about redevelopment opportunities and things of that nature. So that's what this conversation is helping to funnel into. In terms of tonight's agenda, we're going to quickly review the process for that downtown 2445 update, so you understand that. We're going to go through the maps really quickly that are in front of you and what they mean. We're going to prompt discussion opportunities with prepared questions and then discuss next steps. So the Downtown 2045 update, this is something that's been discussed by the city and the McMinnville Urban Renewal Advisory Committee for several years now. It is now funded through the Urban Renewal Agency, and as I said, is moving forward. It has 4 goals. It's going to review the existing land uses in the downtown, discuss future land use goals. So does it make sense what's happening now? Do we want to do something different? It's going to look at evaluating development opportunities and then set the stage potentially for an amendment to the downtown urban renewal plan. This is a map from the downtown improvement plan adopted in 2000. So that's the last time we adopted a plan. I thought it was somewhat ironic because even in that planning process, at the very beginning of the process, they identified the publicly owned properties in the downtown area. So on this map, all the light blue properties are publicly owned. Then they followed it up with a map that talked about districts, and in that they also identified publicly owned land, and then actually separated out the Yamhill County land at that time that was in ownership. So the Downtown Master Plan 2045, the scope of work in this is we're going to look at the history of downtown planning. In McMinnville, it's interesting when you look at the history, it all builds on itself. And so McMinnville has been following this trajectory of shared vision. We're going to look at the boundaries of the downtown too, as well, whether they make sense. Should we be thinking a little bit broader for the next 20 years? We'll do a market analysis. We'll do public engagement. We'll focus on vision and goals. We'll look at a development strategy for the properties themselves, specifically policy review, and then an implementation plan. So how do we make things happen? That's where the urban renewal district and urban renewal plan come into play. So when the 2000 downtown improvement plan was adopted. The city then moved into an effort of putting together the urban renewal area as a tool to implement that plan. And so we currently have a district right now. For the downtown plan 2045, we've already made a commitment that our study area is going to go beyond the existing downtown urban renewal area to see if we need to sort of expand our thought process. That doesn't mean the urban renewal district is going to expand to these study areas. It just means we're looking at these areas to see if in 20 years they need to be included in our as part of our downtown planning. And so that will be important for tonight because you'll notice that there's a substantial amount of land owned by both the city and the county that are just outside and contiguous to the downtown urban renewal area today. And if there is discussions of vacating those properties and trying to realign them into private redevelopment, that would be a great opportunity to have that discussion about what does that mean and can this tool help us get it there. The final deliverables for the downtown master plan is the downtown master plan itself, the action plan, and visuals of what that will develop. And then perchance an update and revision of the downtown urban renewal plan and the report of the downtown urban renewal plan. It's not unusual. Our downtown urban renewal plan was adopted in 2013. It's not unusual to go back and do sort of a 10-year look, what's working, what's not working, and that's where we're at today in terms of this process. The maps that are in front of you, we tried to provide maps to help you have your conversations. You have a master map that identifies both Yamhill County-owned property, that's in red, City of McMinnville-owned property, that's in blue, and then purple is other publicly owned and tax-exempt property. There's a couple of housing authority properties in there as well. And then we have blown up some sections for you and identified adjacent ownerships too for the discussion. And we've identified both west and east for that discussion. When we had a conversation about this at the Urban Renewal Advisory Committee meetings, we talked a little bit about historic properties. So I wanted to point out to you, there's several properties, as you know, that are both owned by the county and city that are on the City of McMinnville's Historic Landmarks Inventory. And so that's a local landmark inventory. Then we also have properties that are on the National Register of Historic Places. That's a federal inventory, and it has a slightly different regulatory approach to it. And I wanted to point out that up here, where the clerk's office is, that is in our National Register Historic District. And then I believe, if I'm looking at this correctly, City Hall, can't tell if City Hall's in there. But that's something for us to recognize and be aware of. And then there's also, we have what's called the reduced parking requirement area in our code. So we have a portion of the downtown where we don't require any parking for development and redevelopment, and then a portion of our downtown where we have a reduced parking allowance of 50%. So that's also an important thing to consider when you're thinking about redevelopment of properties or repositioning properties and what that means relative to parking. And then also for the historic structures in our downtown, we also have an additional variance for those properties. So you can get a variance of 5 parking spaces through the city's administrative process, or you can go to Planning Commission for additional. So we've had, if you think of Two Dogs Tap House, when they came in and put their restaurant in where Springs Living used to have their office space, they needed more parking than the office space needed. And so we went through a process of looking at the parking required. They were in the 50% reduced area. They needed to reduce it further with the variance, and so they went through Planning Commission for that. The purpose for that is to make sure we're preserving these historic properties and not putting a barrier in front of them in terms of them being able to move forward in a different use because of parking. So some of the questions we wanted to prompt you for dialogue, and we can go through these individually, Mayor and Chair, or we can go through them. I can put them all together at once, and you guys can have your conversation organically, however you want the meeting to move forward. Happy to help facilitate that.
I'm good with that, whatever. I think probably what we should do is, I'm going to defer to Ken Huffer, our admin, and kind of give us a time frame on our move from OMI. That way, we can all kind of gauge where we're at with vacating our properties. And then maybe just a high overview of, that was prior to me, of our assessment for our properties that we did.
All right. Everybody hear me okay? Am I too close? Okay. All right, so where to unpack this? So I will say, just kind of starting with how we got here to the OMI, the building formerly known as OMI building. We're still working on the naming for that, but so, you know, this is something that we started a little more than 5 years ago as far as starting to do our initial planning and assessments. 600 plus employees over the buildings that we occupy. We were at max capacity. We've pretty much utilized every square inch. We also had the courts needing additional courtrooms. They were also at max capacity within the courthouse. And so we started doing 5 years ago an assessment, and we assessed our properties for potential for redevelopment, growth, maintenance limitations, deferred maintenance, all the above, looking at some of the limitations that we had there. After doing that assessment, we then identified that, yes, we had needs. We had insufficient space to accommodate the growth and the issues that we had going forward. So we also initiated a strategic capital plan that looked into a lot of the same things that Heather was highlighting as far as the historic resources, the property limitations, what we could do potentially for redevelopment. And we looked at various different options, everything from new construction to acquisition opportunities. And so, long story short, that's a lot of years of effort and planning that went into this, and then the opportunity presented itself with the OMI campus. And of course, as everyone knows, we successfully, acquired that property, which includes both buildings. It's the older building and the newer building. So that campus is what we have identified. And right now we're looking, our plans is to consolidate our county clerk's office, our planning department, our IT division, our tax and assessment office, our HHS admin plus HHS developmental disabilities program and veteran services, and county administration, which also includes our human resources, finance, economic development, Board of Commissioners, my office, all in this location. So all total, we're looking at a couple hundred employees that we're going to be consolidating in this location, which is right now going to free up 8 properties that we currently have targeted that we're going to be moving in stages. And right now we're in the planning stages, and because we're trying to be very deliberate on occupying the space. There's going to be some minimal improvements that are happening. We're also doing planning for additions to the courthouse, which adding another courtroom. And then also we're trying to be deliberate as the properties. We don't want to just vacate 8 properties right off the gate and go into that. So we're trying to be deliberate in what properties we're making available. The first building that's coming available is, in fact, we're getting ready to list that, is the public health building. Public health has moved over to Kirby. That was not, it was part of the larger plan, but that was an opportunity that also presented because we were reaching capacity with our public health department. So they're not moving to the new location, but they moved to a lease location. And so that property's been vacated, and we're currently in the process of decommissioning that building and getting it ready to make available and get it listed. Our IT division has already moved, so we have 2 houses that we're just now starting to do the decommissioning of those 2 houses. really limited. They're pretty small houses. We made use of those for quite some time with our IT department in those 2 homes. So we're still working on the planning for that. And so we anticipate over the next 12 months, again, a very deliberate kind of rollout and move in to the new location, and trying to be very sensitive that we're not going to vacate all 8 properties at once and throw them all out onto the market for sale. So I don't know. That's a quick synopsis of where we're at. Chair, did you have anything else you wanted me to touch on?
No, I think that sets the tone pretty good for where we're at and kind of time frame. I will say that if we're talking IT, that's going to be behind community center, behind the annex. And then I think everybody's aware of where our finance and Board of Commissioners houses are, the clerk is, and the old planning building. So I'd say time frame wise, though, that block will be towards the end of that 1-year time frame.
Okay, so we can take these questions, let's just take them one at a time. So the first question, what are your current and future needs relative to your property downtown? So are you asking, is that for both of us or for the county?
Yes.
For both of us, okay. All right, anybody want to start us off? Commissioner Zurich?
Is that on? Nope, I just turned it
It
off.
is, you just have to be super close.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation. I think for me, it comes down to our fiduciary responsibility, not only as a board, but in general, all of our departments, is to have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers. We just took on an enormous debt, not something the county has typically done in the past. The county has been in terms of financial responsibility and fiduciary, it has been extremely responsible. We haven't taken on debt, and we've lived within and below our means. And that has put us in a position that a lot of counties can't find themselves in these days because they're struggling. For instance, Washington County is severely underfunded in terms of what budget cuts they're looking at. So for me, I think it's a very simple equation. The simple equation is that while I think it's laudable looking at the prospects and some of the plans that the city has been working on, I think for us it comes down to show me the money. And if a property comes online, for instance, as our administrator pointed out, public health is online, is about to be listed. If there is a need for that property and the listing price says it's 1.5 or 1.6, we would be looking at getting as close as we can to that estimate and to that asking price. So for me, it comes down to that. For all of the properties that will be listed, that we have a responsibility to pay down the debt we've just incurred, and hopefully that will work with the city and work with MORAC, and we'll get some consensus and some synergy there. But for me, it's all about the money.
Thank you. Anybody else? Counselor?
Yeah, this is probably a question for Ken. You had mentioned that we're adding, or the county is adding another courtroom to help with the needs. What, for the future, what are we looking at for the courthouse, the jail? Like, what are the needs of the courthouse and the jail in the future?
Then turn it on. All right. That's a great question, because we're still have needs, with the jail, with the courthouse, and it is something that we as the county are obligated to provide a courthouse and provide that for the courts. And so we know that there's going to be future needs. We're hoping that this additional courtroom, because the other catch is right now there's 3 courtrooms, or there's 4 courtrooms, 3 that can hold jury trials and 1 that cannot. And so there's been a lot of requests for, and that's what we're looking at with the additional courtroom that we're adding to the basement, to incorporate that it could actually hold jury trials in. And so that's a big need that the courts already have identified. We're also looking at, we always have needs for the jail, is another one, and the sheriff's office, and that's where we're kind of hoping, because again, when you look at the campus that we purchased, there's 2 buildings, and so right now we're doing some assessments about the second building, the older building of the 2, of doing some redevelopment there to possibly free up even more space around the courthouse campus to then facilitate more improvements that could happen as far as the shuffling around of court operation, sheriff operation, make some improvements for more secure access to the courtrooms, all the above. That's more of a longer project ahead of us, because we're also we're going to be working very actively with the courts and with the state to hopefully get some funding to offset some of that cost. But that's a great question, but that's we're still looking at that footprint and how we can better utilize within that. I'll just share, I've been with Yamhill County for 20 years. When I started with the county, it was really split, that a lot of the operations for admin, commissioners, the clerk, the assessor, that are now currently out in all these satellite properties were all within the courthouse at that time. And the court operations have just grown over that time, and we've had to expand out. And so we're finally getting to a point to where the county, as far as services go, that we're going to be able to, the first time in 20 years, where we're consolidating a lot of our services under one roof again, while at the same time we're going to be able to free up space within the courthouse to accommodate that growth and needs that the sheriff has and the courts have as well. So hopefully that answered your question. That was a long answer, sorry.
Counselor Cunningham, do you have?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that in taking into Commissioner Sterrett's comments that the short and long-term needs for the courts and the jail system are going to be based around those current buildings, is my understanding of that then.
Meaning not building another courthouse?
Yeah, exactly. We're not looking to move.
Not right now.
Not at this moment, it sounds like.
Okay.
Counselor Payne?
Want to go? Oh, thank you, Bubba. So, Heather, thank you for mentioning the historic registry element. I think specifically relative to the city, and that we're having these conversations about Parks and Rec and the facilities changes, and there's a lot of ifs with that, but that the community center being historically designated and the current disrepair state of that building, but also its proximity to county facilities, I'm not sure. I guess I'm more curious to hear if there's any relevance to the community center for the county. And then my other question is, with it being historically designated, is there potential for that building to be improved beyond what would be able to be suitable to keep it on the historic registry? Like, is its historic registry status going to be a barrier? And then I have a few follow-up questions, but I'll start there.
Do you want me to answer your second question first?
Sure. Everybody quick on the draw.
So that is not on the National Register of Historic Places, I don't think. So it is on our local inventory. What that means is because it's on our local historic landmarks inventory, if it's altered, it would go through a review, or if it's demolished entirely, it would go through a review through the Historic Landmarks Committee, and there's criteria in which to make those decisions. But it's not a barrier to not moving forward in that direction, if that makes sense.
And then one of your other questions was, at this point, does the county have any interest in that building? Was that a question?
I mean, I think we need to be
No.
realistic about.
I kind of thought they had an answer, so.
Okay. Other questions are, the parking structure is not relative to the city. No offense to Visit McMinnville and the parking that they need for tourism, but it is definitely more used by judicial services or services that are in the courthouse. So I feel conflicted personally that we have this asset that we're not exactly seeing a benefit from. So I guess I'm interested in knowing sort of like with the shift of many of the county services that have been down there that are probably, like the clerk's office is one that comes to mind, the BOC office, with that moving to OMI, is there any insight into the need to continue maintaining that parking garage?
Anybody want to answer that? We can come back to it.
I can probably answer that. I would say with the move with the services, there still is a need for that parking garage. I will say that most of the properties that we have that are consolidating, like the clerk's office and the block that admin and the commissioner's on, we have parking around those buildings that we utilize. And, there's still going to be a lot of services, courts, DA's office, juvenile probation, juvenile detention, all that staff, health and human services at Evans Street, our behavioral health campus is still going to be there. We're still going to be serving clients out of that location. So family and youth, which is across the street, across Fifth Street from the parking garage, they're also going to continue there. They also have parking under the building, but I think that's a mix of both. So the simple answer is, even with the move and consolidation that we have, most of the folks that are moving to the new location aren't parking in the parking garage. So that's going to continue.
And I'll say besides county-related parking, I see that used quite frequently during the weekend and during events that happen in McMinnville, so.
Commissioner King?
Going to address Councilor Cunningham's question for the courthouse. I think that if we're projecting 20 years out, there is a world where something happens to the courthouse or the jail. I have no idea what that looks like, but from past sheriffs and this sheriff expressing needs for a lot of improvement or repairs. I don't know where that happens, right? But I would say to say no to that for 20 years from now would be irresponsible. But I don't think that anything happens without the people in this room either. I don't think that it's a heavy lift for just the county. I think it's a whole, every citizen has to decide on that. That's not just any three commissioners that sit up here.
Anyone else? Does the city, anybody from the city have any input on what our needs are for downtown? Thank you, Councilor Payne.
I bet you guys wish I was back on again.
We're happy to have you back.
I just, maybe it's a little pipe dreamy, but given the current state of the broadside of this building in front of us, that's the current city hall, I aspire to dream as the county has dreamt in having all of their, a lot of their facilities administration in one convenient, accessible place, especially when we're talking about moving our community center to so far away. And I realize that's just a discussion, but I think we talk often about, downtown McMinnville, historic 3rd Street, Sunset Magazine's #1 downtown, whatever, being the heart and making sure that our community members feel that way when they're trying to access something versus feeling inconvenienced. And I'm not talking about people from working from home, but like City Hall is not accessible. Like, my grandma right now wouldn't be able to walk in there because it's not accessible due to hours and due to the steps. And so I think about that and what buildings we have that could be potential site options for all that all-inclusive space.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Okay.
We do have MURAC members Abigail Nealon, Diana Riggs, Lisa Poole, and Tim Wade on Zoom if they want to raise their hand to participate.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Chenoweth?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a need that I think the city has, and I don't know if it's something, and I think it dovetails with the county's services that they provide. we've recently had a pretty severe experience with some out-of-control dogs. And so, when I'm looking at these buildings, one of the realizations that I see as a need that needs to be provided at some way or another is some sort of dog control. So I'm wondering if any of these buildings, as they come available, or existing buildings, should conversations move forward toward providing a dog control service, again, would any of these buildings work for that type of facility?
Commissioner Starrett?
I'll let our Administrator Ken Huffer go first, but I do have a thought on that.
Did you hear that?
Well, go ahead, Ken.
It's not something that we included in our planning as far as some of our feasibility or kind of looking at that. Just knowing at one point, when we did operate under the Sheriff's Office head kennel, we had it at the fairgrounds. So I think just knowing, I think the first challenge we would have is, like any type of kennel like that, kind of, we'd be talking to the city about the zoning and limitations of being able to put something like that within the, I'm also sensitive to the fact that if you look at how our properties are positioned and their interface with the surrounding neighborhoods and some of the businesses, I think some of the current buildings that we're looking at vacating in the downtown core area would have some serious limitations in doing that, but anything's possible, I guess. I'll throw it back to the board. And
I would just say, once again, it comes down to, that's a great idea, but show me the money. Because back in the day, I remember the very beginning, we had dog control out by the fairgrounds, but we had inmate labor. So you had that whole piece that was not an expense. We know the costs of public employees, so we knew that we really just had 1 or 2 dog control officers in terms of that being dedicated funding for that. We also had revenue from licensing, which went to fund that. But then when that became prohibitive, and also we had a $100,000 donation offered to us to rehab that kennel out by the fairgrounds, but that wasn't even enough to do the trick. So we had to basically say, we have to end that. We started a contract with Pet Stop Inn, and then after that, we went to Homeward Bound. Homeward Bound is, the limitations of trying to build a facility like that, and some of the problems that they've had, or challenges they've had perhaps with the city or contractors or funding. So I guess at this point, we're looking at the funding piece of that, is that we don't have the money for a dog control officer. We don't have the money to actually build a facility because we're trying to pay off the other one that we just bought. And I don't think it's anything we could do right now. We have a brand-new contract with Newburgh Animal Shelter, which has saved us $23,000. Going forward, we know that for instance, in Jackson County, they're going to be building a dog control facility, and now they're going to be accepting cats. We're going to have to look at that sometime down the road, but in terms of the facility in the downtown area, I don't know that that would be something that would make any sense, especially when you've got Homeward Bound that close. So I would say right now it's just way generations down the road.
So I think most of you know that Homeward Bound is building a new facility, which is going to be amazing and good for the animals. And there is a rumor that there is going to be room for cities and counties to possibly contract for some areas. So that could be a avenue that we can look at. But of course, it has to be built first. But anybody else?
I'm going to bring up the detox center. And publicly, we have discussed using our annex building, which is behind the community center, as a potential for that detox facility because of the way it's set up. There's nothing set in stone on that. But since we're talking about repurposing properties, if we do something to stay financially responsible, we would use first or address properties that we already own in our own portfolio. So if we're talking about repurposing current properties, that would be one other thing that we have talked about.
Dave Rucklos.
Yeah, so based on your liquidation of properties, okay, for fiduciary purposes, you guys have the assessed value of what all those properties are at right now?
We don't have it with us, but we can get it for you probably by Friday. Derek's pretty good at that stuff. In fact, he's probably listening right now.
It'd be important to know what the value is.
Yeah, we'll get it. I can tell you that we did have, can I tell them what the public health assessed at? Yeah, so Mary mentioned a couple numbers. We're going to list it for 1.72. So that'll kind of give you a rough idea. And that is the one that's kitty corner to Atticus.
We're going to go to Counselor Geary.
Thank you. On the detox center, I know you guys have started talking about that, and it's a long process. And while I think that is a valuable asset to the citizenry as a whole, we want to get people using those services. And we've talked about, you've heard here from a commissioner, you've a counselor, and you've heard maybe through the community that we're talking about building a new rec center, new facility for our citizens, and while we still are pushing that effort along, we're still using that community center for cultural heart and soul of our city to push events through of all ages, kids, adults, seniors. It's a really, really dynamic space, and we really program that in what I think is a non-compatible use to how directly close those two things are. And I would just encourage you to keep in touch with us as you guys move those plans along, and whether you and our staff or your staff and our staff work together on just kind of live a day in over there as well to see, I understand your guys' use, but we're running, children's programming out of there, and people are getting out of jail and using all the facilities. So again, I appreciate trying to create this service, but we're still trying to run this service out of our community center, and just want to be really careful if you guys move forward with that, at the very least, to keep us in mind and keep our staff in mind and our patrons in mind as you guys develop that.
Absolutely. And I'd encourage you guys to be a part of the summits that we've been having. I'm not sure when the next one is, but they're very enlightening, because even I had a different perspective on what clientele would come to a detox facility, and I think it's different than what at least my perception was. And it really helps to be a part of those summits to educate on how that rollout's going to come and what it is. The summits that we've been having are how, when, and where we can spend our detox monies that have been coming in. So, and I don't know if Commissioner Sterritt can kind of touch on it, because partly I learned from you about kind of that clientele that's coming in. And then Lindsay Mandarin also spoke up about it at the summit. So,
Just real briefly, and I do understand your concerns, but I think the impression is that we have people who are actively using drugs and that will be, frequenting this facility. But I think just the very opposite is true. We have those who are committed to getting clean and sobriety and the recovery process. And for me, I would rather have that be my next door neighbor than the folks who are frequenting that area around the community center and our jail and our 3rd Street now, which are actively using drugs and haven't made the decision to live a clean and sober life. So it really is just getting an education of who is actually going in there and what is going to happen while they're in there. You don't just walk in there, it's a process. So, but thank you for bringing that up.
and definitely we're just in the beginning phase of this, and we're definitely going to be in communication.
Okay, I'm going to go to Counselor Payne, then Counselor Peralta, and then Mike Morris. Counselor Payne?
Thank you, Mayor. So I have 2 questions. So one, thank you, Counselor Geary, for bringing up the detox facility, and thank you, Commissioner Sterritt, for answering those questions. I know they're hard questions, and it's a hard system to kind of navigate when we're rural, but trying our best to meet the needs of such a broad community. I know there's like a TTRS house around there, transitional housing for sobriety, and a little bit of kind of day treatment around the corner. So I guess one of my questions would be sort of like, for the county, is there an opportunity to kind of consolidate, not necessarily the TTRS house, but the UA drop-off site? I can't remember the name of the property. I guess I could look at the map, but it's kind of kitty corner to the back of the community center, and consolidate more of those facilities so that we're seeing less of the kind of residual unpreferred behavior.
Ken can follow up. I'm going to answer first, then Ken can follow up if he's got anything to add. So typically the size of these facilities is what we're looking at, and so we don't want to go bigger with them. We want to stay with kind of a larger house format that's maybe 5 rooms or so. So we're actually looking at adding with facilities that we already have with our HHS department. Do you want to add anything to that? Okay.
Sorry, I was.
And if you want to get more in depth with it or whatever, Lindsay Manfred's more than accessible to anybody if they have questions about any of the programs that we have within the county too. So.
Sure. Thank
Can I
you.
go to Sal and then come back to you so
Yes,
he has an
ma'am.
opportunity?
Yeah.
Okay. Council Peralta?
Thank you, Mayor. Can people hear me okay? Trying, okay. First of all, congratulations on the purchase of the OMI property. I think that's a really great step forward for the county. I think that consolidation of services is really beneficial. As a counselor, I would love to see the city also consolidate more in this core and turn more of these properties over to private development or affordable housing development. With regard to the OMI property, have there been conversations at the staff level about the city leasing part of that after the OMI contract is complete for our purposes? And if not, is that something that would be worth having a conversation about?
I don't know if Ken's had any conversations. I haven't heard of any, but I can tell you that pretty much every square foot in the next 4 years is going to be used up in that building. And then at year 5, OMI will vacate their portion. Not quite sure what the plan, yeah, maybe. That we have till year 5 and then we reassess. They may be on a year-to-year lease by then, but right now, 5-year plan, we're going to use every square foot.
And to be clear, I don't think we're going to be making any huge transitions in the next 5 years. I was thinking more
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, and just to echo what the chair was saying, right now, as part of the purchase and sale agreement, we agreed to a 5-year lease with OMI. But it's not really a max in 5 years. It's giving them time to kind of figure out what they want to do long-term. And I'm anticipating that come year 4, we'll probably be having discussions. And I don't know if they have long-term plans or where we're going to be at that point, but we're ready to have that discussion.
Mike Morris?
Can I add to that a little bit?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, Board Chair. So Ken and I have had some pretty high-level discussions about all these moving property parts. Just a reminder that when the city completed its facilities condition assessment back in 2019, we presented to the council the results of that assessment, and our primary focus became looking at a way to replace the current uses in the aquatic center and the community center with a single facility. We folded library renovation into that conversation, but we sort of put a pin in our assessment of the rest of our facilities. I do think that over the next couple of years or so, we should assess what our needs are for those other facilities. There may be opportunities to continue to talk with the county as all that work gets done. But we're not at the same place with our general service assessment as the county is right now.
Thank you.
So really looking at the 8 properties that are coming on the market, the real jewel of it are the 4 contiguous properties between 4th and 5th and Evans and Ford. And looking at those, if a single user were to come in and purchase those and with the intent of redeveloping them, which might mean potentially removal, tear down of some of the houses, possibly certainly the planning building due to its condition. I don't know about the ability to do that at the clerks. But with that redevelopment play in mind, which probably would be highest and best use, create the most value for MURAC, probably have the most economic impact on the downtown core. Heather, without going into too deep into the weeds, what would be a timeline to make that happen once a property closed and a developer started moving forward? How long would that process potentially take?
Can you clarify the process that you're asking about?
So either complete redevelopment of that single block from basically its current use to, let's say, whether it was a multi-use hotel, housing, retail, whatever, how long do you think that process would take?
Yeah, so assumption of demolition of the historic landmarks or relocation. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
And then redevelopment of the site.
Yes.
So that's a two-part process. The first part would be working through the historic landmarks decision-making. We are, by our code, we bring those land use applications to our Historic Landmarks Committee within 30 days of them being deemed complete. We only have 30 days to deem them complete. So within 60 days, we should be in front of the Historic Landmarks Committee with that as a decision for them to make. The clerk's building, because it is on the National Register, will have to be a noticed public hearing. The others are just done in a public meeting. So slightly different nuance associated with that. Assuming that that moves forward smoothly and a decision is made that's not appealed, then you have the opportunity to go into redevelopment on the site. And if it's an outright allowed use, it actually comes in for a building permit, and we review it under our downtown design standards at that time and guidelines, and then also all of our partner agencies are reviewing at the same time. So if we had a complete application for that process as well, typically the redevelopment project is reviewed at the same time as the demolition or relocation project, because one of the decisions is what's the give and take. So we're removing a historic landmark or we're relocating a historic landmark. What's coming in that's of better value to the community? The Historic Landmarks Committee makes that downtown design decision. So most projects are bundled together, those two decisions. So that would be in that same 60-day period. And then the building permit review for commercial development right now, if it's a good application and we're not going back and forth, or my building official usually likes this, our building official usually likes to say, the first review with comments will come out in about 6 to 8 weeks on a commercial project.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we can do it fairly quickly if it's a good project and the application submittal is a good submittal.
Thank you, Heather. Dan Gibson from Visit McMinnville, and then Jessica, I'm going to go back and let you ask your other question.
The commission, this might be a more specific question for the commissioner, but I understand the get the properties off the books, show me the money idea. It makes perfect sense. Is there an agnosticism to the long-term tax generated by those properties sale? Let's say the former health building sells to a church, say, for example. There's a longer-term tax implication there, by my understanding. I'm new here. Is that part of the math of it, or is it merely a highest price, quickest math?
Church probably wouldn't be a good example, but I would do another example and then, because a church isn't going to.
Right, well, so that's why I was confused. I mean, if a church came to us and wanted to buy it, and you're asking us if we would deny that sale because then it wouldn't be coming on the tax rolls?
Yeah, I guess whatever the example is. Sorry. Whatever example would remove it from the tax rolls, is that part of the math? And it may not be it might be not relevant at all. My elementary understanding of Yamhill County and city property tax being what it is.
I think a good example would be the housing authority. The housing authority is exempt from property tax.
Well, I think just the price alone is going to would make that question null and void. I mean, we can have that conversation if it did come to fruition, but the price tags we're talking here and where these properties are located, I doubt we're going to it's going to be developers that would probably roll in and want to purchase these. For us, where the county's coming from, or at least me, a third of the board, I would be maximize our profit to the public, pay back our OMI debt that we've incurred, and we have a time frame within months. I'm not talking days, because it is government that we're working with here, that it wouldn't mess with our time frame. So those are really my main parameters, and when I met with MURAC, I kind of laid that groundwork for what I want to envision for us selling these properties.
I understand your point, though, is it'd be great to have a property that gave property taxes back to the county and the city.
Right. There is a consideration on the city end, not just theoretical best use, which is arguable, but there's a real cost to the city that is happening by the transition of this property already, right? And continuing to have it could lead to further things off the tax rolls. I understand it's a wild theoretical, but it's a theoretical that could be presented before the decision, before forcing a decision, right? And thank you.
Thank you. Did you have something?
No, I was just going to say that there are a lot of considerations, but at least for another third of the board, for me, we could talk about this till midnight, and I think you have your plans and you have your visions, we have our vision, and our vision is that we just get rid of the debt for OMI, and that means that we get what we can get for the buildings, and that's the consideration number one for me. Again, I don't want to speak for the entire board.
I guess my concern one last thing. I guess my concern in the long term is like McMinnville and Yamhill County's interests are intersected in that sense, right? The space being used, not just economically on the tax rolls, which is one thing for the city, which is already facing significant challenges budget-wise. What is the use case going forward? Those interests aren't just an economic spreadsheet thing. They are, what are these properties going to be used for in the long term, right? These are core properties to the identity of McMinnville, I would argue, to some extent, by their location. And so I guess I understand the idea of like the county has incurred debt, but the county has incurred debt that McMinnville could pay the price for by what it's sold to. That's just my long-term concern. I mean, I say that from a tourism standpoint. It is adjacent to our downtown. Our downtown is the core of our tourism interests to a large extent. So just something to consider.
Mayor, before we go off that topic, can I ask a couple of quick questions of our staff along that line?
Okay, and then I'm going to go back to Jessica, and then Eva King and Lisa Poole. So
Mayor, point of order too, you have had people with their hands up on.
I just had Lisa.
Okay.
That's the only.
So my two quick questions are, these properties are almost entirely, actually it's three technically, but they're all quick, within MURAC, or within within the MURAC, right? All of these properties are.
So the dark line, I'll go to the full map. The black line is the urban renewal district. There are properties owned by the county and the city that are just adjacent to that district.
Okay, so the main ones so the ones that are in it, we do not get any tax revenue for any dollar above what they're on the rolls for. So we're getting what they were at the time we created the district. We're getting tax revenue based on their value at that date.
Yes, and
anything owned by the public they were tax exempt. So if they get sold to a developer, the city and the county get nothing until after the district expires, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
38.
And when does it expire? That's my last question.
2038.
It's not, so the expiration date is not set in stone. That's the expected expiration date based on the implementation of the plan.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so Jessica, I asked you, and then I have Bubba and Lisa, I see you. You're going to be third. So, Counselor Payne.
Thank you. Just super fast. I'm sure, Ken, that you already answered this, but I think I maybe missed it. So what's the timing on the buildings that are being decommissioned and then listed, not repurposed?
So right now, we have one building that's going to get listed within the next week or so, the public health building. The timelines for how we're vacating the other buildings, again, it's going to take a little bit longer because we're also trying to get them, I mean, they were used, for commercial space, like the two houses for IT. That'll probably be the next two that we're going to be looking to list. The other ones, because again, we're talking, it's not as simple as just, as you know, we're picking up, moving. So it's going to be over the next several months. We don't have a definitive timeline because, again, we're still in the process of moving our tax and assessment office right now. The next one, the next big heavy lift is going to be our HHS. So that would be another one. Our HHS admin house is going to be one that we're going to be vacating. So it's going to be coming in months, and then how it's going to progress is also what the market dictates as well, too. We're wanting to be very deliberate. We're not necessarily looking to flood the market with 8 commercial properties and work against ourselves. We're trying to be deliberate, and it's going to take time to get folks moved out, and then also whatever improvements we need to make to the property or clean up or decommissioning, removing network and some of our county infrastructure that's in those locations. It takes a little bit of time. Just like the city, we have a lot of staff, but not a lot of staff to kind of, it's the same facilities department that is both decommissioning, executing these moves, and doing all this. So it's a pretty heavy lift for the 12 people that we have working in our facilities department. They're doing it all.
Thank you.
So hopefully
Commissioner
that
King?
answers your question.
Yeah, I would just say as the other third, and to Dan's point, and even the 8 properties, Commissioner Sterrett's show me the money. I would also add to that, show me the customer. If there's some realtors here and some tourism folks that can really help with that, then, encourage those people, and bring us the customer. I think that would be part of that help, and to really get us the most money. And I don't think it's been a secret that we're leaving most of these buildings for a while now. So let's get the most money and get the best person in there for McMinnville, for the county, and for the future of where we're at here.
Lisa Poole, who's on Zoom?
So I think it's, obviously it's very important to be talking about the money aspect of things, of course, but I want to caution everybody on this show me the money aspect, because it seems to be a very kind of short-term consequence that we're looking at. And I think some of the discussion is
Lisa?
to say, well,
We
yes.
can't hear you very well.
Oh, let me try a different microphone.
You were good in the beginning, and then you faded away.
Is that better?
Just a little. It's still pretty faint.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Is that any better?
Yes.
Okay. So what I was trying to say was that it's really important when we're talking about show the money, that you have to think about, it's easy to do in this modern society. We think about what's happening right now, what's in front of us, and it's attractive to do that. But I think when we're talking about show the money, I think we have to look at what is the short-term and the long-term consequence of that money. And so I think the discussion that we were hoping to have here is to look at, is there a way to leverage this downtown to protect the cultural aspects of it and the vibe that we're wanting to keep on, as a community about what's going on in the downtown, while also keeping an eye on not only the money that we get today, but also the money we're getting in 20 years. Because a lot of times these cities are struggling because they didn't think about where they're going to be in 20 years. And that's one of the things I think is great about Yamhill County and McMinnville, is there is an eye towards the future. And so I think one of the concerns I have is that if you just piecemeal this all off, not only are we losing perhaps an opportunity to protect our downtown and the culture that we have there, so we can maintain that we have the best downtown in the United States, right? But also that we are setting ourselves up for current as well as future financial success with these buildings. So I feel like that many people have kind of talked about it in various different ways, but I wanted to just put my support out there that I think one of the reasons why we want to talk about this is because we want to make sure that we're making a good decision now, but with an eye towards 20 years from now and 40 years from now, and making sure that we don't have what happened to Jackson, Wyoming, and some of the other cities that, didn't do that planning, and now they're really suffering for that lack of current and future visioning.
Thank you, Lisa. Commissioner Johnston?
Yeah, Lisa Kit Johnston. So just for clarification, with the comment that you made, are you proposing that the county keeps ownership of it until somebody figures out what they would like to do with the property?
Well, I do think that it warrants a conversation and to get together to say, well, what is the vision for this area? And is there a way to, decide, well, maybe some of the buildings should absolutely be immediately sold now, but maybe there are, I believe it was Mike Morris who was discussing, like, what about this larger block? And would that be better to hold that to talk about the vision of that property and how maybe we need to, put together a plan for not just piecemealing it, but maybe sell it as a one-off, in other words, to come up with a vision and a plan for the direction for this area so we can make sure that we protect it for now and also for future generations, not just on a fiscal responsibility, but also, the vibe and the cultural responsibility that we have to the public. It's not just taxes, it's not just finances, but it's also, are we protecting our downtown?
Thank you, Lisa.
No, I hate assuming. So are you proposing that the county keeps ownership of this property until the right buyer based on MURAC or the city council approves, or this group gets back together and approves?
Well, I think that would be very reasonable to put together.
So I can tell you that probably isn't where the county is going to be coming from, but I will say that the properties are for sale for the right person that maybe wants to look at it through that lens, that they could then purchase it and maybe sit on it. But I want to make sure we don't get going down a road here, and I want to make sure that I'm very clear, because even during the MURAC meeting that we had, there's my top concerns were getting the property sold in a timely manner and recouping the highest, best value that we could from these properties.
Thank you.
Right, and I'm just
Chenoweth?
wondering if that is
Lisa,
truly
we're gonna go on to-
selling them as quickly as possible. Is that truly the most responsible fiscal answer?
Lisa?
And I don't necessarily know that's true.
Lisa, that's the county's answer, and we're going to move on to Councilor Chenoweth.
Thank you, Mayor. So is the moving of the county into the OMI building, is that also taking that building off the tax rolls? Okay. So the realistic cost to the city is there, definitely in this process. That's good to know.
Just to be super clear on that, most of it, but some of it stays, right, Ken?
Well, until the lease is up, I'm guessing? Yeah, and so just the portion that OMI is holding.
Super clear.
I appreciate that. I also appreciate your position. I just want to lend my support that I appreciate the position of the county that these are your buildings, and I understand that, and so I want to be careful in how I phrase my comments. And I also want to say I appreciate your fiscal conservatism. I think that you do have a fiduciary responsibility to your taxpayers, and the way you're choosing to go about handling this, I think, is well done. So I just want to put that out there on the record. And if you're looking at a year turnaround, that's quite a quick turnaround for all those properties.
Yes, it is. And that is one realization that ever since starting being a county commissioner, that private time is different than government time. And it is something that I've had to adjust to. But I am very involved in the transition, and Ken can tell you that I will do everything I can to keep pushing it forward. And so far, I think realistically, we are on our time frame. Phase 2 of the older OMI building will definitely be a longer process, but we have planned for that. But our main purpose for the newer OMI building is within a year time frame to get moved. So far, we're on department number 3, and we're sticking pretty close to that.
Mike Morris?
So the commercial real estate brain in me started kind of thinking this out, and so that also is kind of that's what I do for a living. So I have an interest there for disclosure purposes. But maybe there's an opportunity for a compromise in terms of how the properties are brought out. Maybe the 4 properties that are contiguous could be bundled together while they're still occupied, with the intent that those would be marketed to a potential developer. Sounds like there's about a year to make that happen. And then those properties, if you couldn't find a developer within that time frame, then they could be parceled out and sold individually. But it would give an opportunity for a developer to come in while they're still occupied, purchase it, begin their due diligence, form a plan, and then when you vacated, they could move forward. So that might be some middle ground that would work for everyone.
Councilor Cunningham?
All right, I'm going to throw a wild card out there. Being that we're talking about the health services building going first, $1.7 million, and the other 4 contiguous properties immediately across the street. And looking at this map, where OMI is, and then of course where the courts are and everything like that, Heather, what would be the possibility, and this is crazy, of Ford Street being sold along with those contiguous properties to create one very large contiguous property that could be developed together? So I'm talking about Ford between 4th and 5th.
So you're talking about vacating the public right-of-way of Ford Street?
Well, we've a few other public right-of-ways that have at one point been vacated.
Yes. I mean, that could be something that's considered. We would have to look at that.
I mean, that would make all those properties, I would think, a lot more valuable.
Anyone? Okay. Anybody else have anything to say? Oh, sorry, can't see through Chris.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Just because I know there's been a lot of conversations about the parcel with the 4 buildings, where the commissioner's office and planning and those locations is, just so you have an idea, because I know it's really hard to get definitive timelines, but that block is actually the last group that we have targeted to be relocated. The one thing that I will say is the current planning building, we're using that as a storage. It's a transition. We're not using that for office space. The other properties, I mean, there are some limitations, like Heather touched on, as far as the historic register, especially the 2 houses and the current clerk's location. But just as far as timelines go, and when you look at the properties, that's kind of the last block as far as what we have on timelines on that relocation. So, it's something that I'll follow up with the board on.
And Mayor, just to follow up on the public right-of-way vacation, there are opportunities to apply to have the right-of-way vacated. We follow the state process for that with a public hearing at City Council and a final City Council decision. So there are opportunities to consider that.
Okay. Thank you for checking that. We have somebody else up there. Tim Wade?
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
I just wanted to, as a member of MURAC, to second kind of what Mike Morris put forward, and just the cooperative attitude and the idea that, you know, our jurisdiction is development of these downtown areas and renewal, and we want to do that in partnership with the county, and we respect the fact that the county has to get paid for these buildings. And so, you know, hearing that that chunk of 4 kind of last on the list anyways is good to know. And just, you know, I just wanted to reiterate that our perspective from MURAC is try and get these things developed, but do it in a way that, you know, hopefully all different parties' needs can get met, and just kind of second Mike's suggestion.
Thank you, Tim. Anyone else have any? Danny, no? Okay. Councilor Payne?
I was just going to say I appreciate the opportunity for this collaboration.
All right. Anybody else on this side? Nobody on this side? Okay, so just, I want to say thank you to the commissioners for being here with us tonight, and thank you to the MURAC members for attending. I think we all heard that it is the county's buildings, and we appreciate the fact that they do belong to you, and you have a fiscal responsibility to the Yamhill County citizens, but we appreciate the thought that you would listen and entertain some development opportunities, but keeping on your timeline, so.
And just because this session is over, I'm still available. Anybody has any questions, just call me. I'm very, very involved in this move, so if I can't answer it, Ken's only an office away, and I'll make sure that I get back to you about it.
Or you can find him at any county event.
Yes.
You're everywhere.
Well, I'm going to be here at 7. Oh,
I know.
what time is it? Oh,
Be in the waiting
I got a McMinnville City Council meeting I got to go to.
So I'd like to, at 6:46, adjourn the joint meeting of the County Commissioners, MURAC, and the City of McMinnville Council. Thank you.
Give public comment about a crazy guy I met at the MURAC.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
Hospital.
Sports playing children, of which I have none.
We'll talk about it later. Okay.
Okay.
So that's good.
I will now call the city council meeting to order and request that Claudia do a roll call.
Counselor Cunningham?
Here.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Present.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Here.
Counselor Payne? Present. Counselor Geary?
Good evening.
Council President Peralta?
Here.
And Mayor Morris.
Here. Now, if you're able to stand, please stand for the pledge, and Counselor Payne, excuse me, could lead us in the pledge. Thank you. Now we're going to go to public comment. Any interested audience member are invited to provide comments, and any comment provided that requires some type of follow-up will be assigned to a staff member. Anyone may speak on any topic other than a matter in litigation, a quasi-judicial land use matter, or a matter scheduled for public hearing at some future date. Comments will be limited to 4 minutes per person for a total of 32 minutes. If you are on Zoom and wish to speak, please use the raise your hand feature or chat feature and send a chat to the city recorder team. Once your turn is up, we will announce your name and unmute your mic. Please announce your name and the city of which you live when you come up to speak. Claudia, do we have anybody signed up?
Yes, and before we start, I do want to state for the record that I emailed 2 public comments to the city council, and those will be added to the amended packet posted tomorrow. First, we'll start with William Sykes.
Good evening.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi. Thank you, esteemed council and Mayor Morris. I'm Will Sykes from McMinnville. I'm here to ask for help regarding our out-of-control loud vehicle problem. I understand these vehicles are in violation of Municipal Code 810260. These vehicles are obnoxious, they're juvenile, and they're embarrassing. And we can do better. This is the 7th time I've come in front of this body to ask for help. Chenoweth, Tucholsky, and Geary are the only ones that did anything, reached out to me to try to help. Yet I'm still here again with the same message. I'll continue to come here to tell the story and to ask for the same help. Hopefully one day someone can explain to me why I would get pulled over for a broken taillight and get a ticket, but these hooligans are allowed to terrorize our lovely, quiet town, ripping around town at all hours, unchecked, completely unchecked. They rip up and down 3rd Street, up and down 2nd, right in front of the police station, from Lowe's all the way down to Walmart. You can hear them any time of the day, and now you can hear them a good bit at night. John, in our Stop the Noise MAC group, reports being woken up at night by these cars ripping around 2nd and Hill Road. They're everywhere. Now they're our neighbors. The problem is real, and it's not going to get better. And what's even more disturbing, I see brand new cars with modified mufflers. I see moms and dads dropping their kids off at school with these new cars, with obnoxious modified mufflers. Babies in the back seat. Guess who's going to get a loud vehicle when they turn 16? My child holds his ears when they drive by, as he's extra sensitive to loud noises. I told the story here about how one day on 3rd, we were going to Serendipity to get ice cream. It was a beautiful afternoon. We all love 3rd Street, walking down on a nice afternoon. One of these guys ripped by and made my kid cry. Think about that. We were going to get ice cream. My kid starts crying because of one of these loud cars. Now, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an attorney, but as I understand it, we have a municipal code that's not being enforced called A10260. In addition to this testimony, I have included section D4 of the municipal code A10260. I've also included my audio camera proof of concept that I shared with this body on September 10, 2024, and also a Stop the Noise proposal that we can collectively use to move forward and assign ownership. Now, I trust the new administration here has a plan, and I'm eager to learn more about it. I've come here tonight to find ownership here from this council. Please help us with this annoying issue. Thank you, and join us at stopthenoisemac.com, stopthenoisemac.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we do have your document, so we'll read through that came in today. Thank you very much. Claudia, do we have anyone else?
Yes, next we have Ames Beerley.
Hi, welcome.
My name is Ames Beerley. I'm a McMinnville resident and business owner, and my husband and I. Oh, thank you. My name is Ames Beerley. I'm a McMinnville resident and business owner, and my husband and I are dads to 2 great kids. This is a comment of appreciation. I was born in McMinnville and chose to settle here with my family because of the community we have and how much people care for each other. One of the things that makes us such a friendly and vibrant city is the way we make so many people feel welcome. As the owner of a business that attracts both locals and visitors, one of the most common things I hear about McMinnville is how beautiful it is and how inviting it looks. People often mention pride flags and how they feel safer and more welcome, knowing that so many people here are openly supportive of our LGBTQ community. It's amazing how seeing that small sign of support can make such a big difference in someone's experience. When I asked one of my young kids how they felt about seeing pride flags at the library, community center, and at businesses here in McMinnville, they said, that tells me that there are more people who care, and I like that. I look forward to seeing McMinnville be a place of caring and inclusion for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Claudia?
Next, we have Margaret Cross.
Good evening.
Good evening. Margaret Cross. I live on Russ Lane in McMinnville. And he did a great lead-in for me because I, too, have concerns about enforcement of our city ordinance regarding noise. I could read it to you, but I think you all know it. It's not supposed to be a nuisance. There are dB levels, there are hours. What we don't seem to have is enforcement. There's a garage band that meets on my street in late afternoons and early evenings. And I recorded, I'm going to play it for you on my phone, a couple minutes, and I don't think I'd inflict that on you, but I was standing on the public sidewalk there in their garage, so a normal driveway. The door is closed, and it was pretty loud. In the summer, I can hear the thud of amplified drums at my house, which is a block away and doesn't even face the house. I'm at the end of the cul-de-sac, and the house faces east, I guess it would, no, it'd be south. And since the band practices after 5 p.m., it's impossible to get a zoning ordinance enforcement officer there. So I'm just going to assault your ears very briefly to tell you what I'm talking about. Three hours in the evening. Now, the house across the street sold. They had 3 small children, and I can't say for sure that they left because they had 3 small children and had to listen to this. But the house next door is also up for sale. There's something wrong with this. The dBs I recorded when I did that little recording with my lousy little phone were between 85 and 93 dBs. The noise ordinance says you're not supposed to have anything over 50 to 55, depending on the time of day. And this is on a very quiet residential street. I think this can fairly be called a nuisance. And I would also include the yard blowers that are used up and down the street that you routinely reach 90 dBs. And there's the same problem with enforcement. We don't have any enforcement. So I am very much on board with the first citizen here. I'd like to see some action on noise enforcement, because this is really quite unacceptable. Secondly, and this is a totally different issue, a friend sent me a copy of the new 3-mile survey showing me 3 different designs and asking for my input. So I read it. And then I emailed Jody Christensen requesting to be put back on the mailing list because I got it from a friend. And I also asked some very specific questions that I asked for answers for, at least some conversation about. And today I got a 1-line response that I was added to the list. Not a single question was answered, and there was no indication that they would be answered in the future. Now, I want to know how I can respond to a survey asking about design features that when I lack the necessary information to make even a preliminary judgment about the need for and the costs of a 200-acre development and what the impacts would be on our community. I try to be an informed citizen. We go through this process, it seems to me, rather backwards. We send out surveys, and I'll stop.
Okay.
But we don't have the data.
Thank you.
I'd like to get it.
Heather Richards, could you reach out or have Jody reach out to her and answer her questions? Thank you. Appreciate that. Claudia, do you have anyone else?
That's everyone who signed up.
Is there anybody in the room that wanted to speak that didn't have the opportunity? Nope. Thank you.
Mayor, may I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Did we have someone follow up with Mr. Sykes?
Would that be Heather with Code of Compliance or Cord, Chief Wood, would that be your department? Thank you. Mr. Sykes, they will.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on. McMinnville Water and Light General Manager John Dietz is here to present to us. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. This is our update, and we are going to move these to every 6 months from quarterly. Mayor and I have talked about that with Jeff. So we have quite a few things going on. So Claudia, next slide, please. We did have an event here back in late February. We had a windstorm. You can see we had quite a bit of damage. Our crews responded, and this was actually on Peavine, and I think we were out about 6 to 8 hours on that outage. Crews did a great job getting back people back on as quickly as possible and safely too. Next slide. Again, this was a lower part of Peavine, and then the other part there is also on Peavine too. So that happens to be a transformer that's hanging from the service wire. So next slide. Crews right now are actually working on our that Peavine line, and they are actually replacing about 18 poles to date, and I think they had about 30 to go. So 24,000 linear feet of conductor, and I believe they're at the point now where they're getting ready to get an easement to do a piece of underground that will tie in Peavine with Youngberg Hill. We have two line protected devices there that break the circuit into multiple pieces. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, thank you. Water system. These are some of the water projects we're looking at. Our priorities in the water system are cast iron pipe. Our system, we have very little PVC in our system. Most of our pipe is either ductile iron, which is the superior material that we feel superior to other materials, or cast. Our system has about 72% cast or ductile and about 21% cast. The remaining is either a combination of copper or some older iron pipe, or a little bit of PVC we have, but most of the pipe is actually cast ductile iron. Next slide. So this is our facility project. We've actually been working on this since about 2018. Currently, we have been occupying that building, or where that building was constructed in 1988. A couple of things that are going on. Priority for us is seismically retrofitting our warehouse building, because that is where all of our vehicles and materials are stored. Getting that up to an immediate occupancy standard. Currently, it is just a steel frame building with no standard right now. And then also upgrading the administration building. Our estimated cost right now is about, with the all-in cost, is about 20 million. Construction is 17 million. We actually had bid openings today for our CMGC contractor, so we will be bringing a recommendation to the commission probably sometime later this month or early in May to move forward with the contractor. Next slide. Also, McMinnville Water and Light was awarded what the American Public Power Association's what they call a RP3, which is a reliable public power provider. This is something that we've done for about 9 years now. We are what is called a platinum designation, so there's diamond, platinum, and gold. And we were just awarded that for the next 3 years. Next slide. And then probably the biggest item is rates, especially on the electric side. There has been a settlement on our power rate with BPA. That settlement is 8.3% compared to the original of
9.8. And then the other item is transmission rates. There is actually settlement discussions going on right now, and hopefully that will be resolved in the next week. But that one will still be a double-digit rate increase, probably close to 20%. That will add about $3 million to our power costs. About half of that is actually paid by our industrial class. And those are direct pass-through costs to our industrial class. Next slide. The mayor and I were in DC here advocating for public power, in particular McMinnville, because McMinnville is a federal agency and they cannot lobby the federal government, but we can on their behalf. So there are a number of issues going on right now, including capital costs, transmission, day-ahead markets, a lot of issues going on on the power side. Next slide. And then we were at the Capitol a couple weeks ago for Water Day. That was organized by the Water Caucus, and we are looking at what potential funding may be available for water infrastructure through the state. Next slide. Questions?
Councillor Cunningham?
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation. Obviously, as we hear costs continue to go up, 8.3, and I'm glad that came below the initial estimate. Obviously, we also have very close neighbors are with PGE. Just for our general public, I think Mac Water and Light still does a fantastic job putting out the service at a very reasonable rate in comparison. Do you have a difference in rates? That'd be a hard question to answer, huh? It's double.
Double for
so
residential.
So roughly we pay half, depending on the user, here in McMinnville.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I would also add water is probably overall, we're on the bottom end of the water rates as well. I think there might be one or two communities in Oregon that are lower than us right now.
Hi, John. Have the cuts to Bonneville Power Association had any effect on operations, to your knowledge?
You're talking about the Doge and the cuts. So initially, yes. And they lost about 300 employees. They also lost, and they have about 3,100 employees. They also lost, I think, a little over 100 what they call probationary employees. So, public power utilities lobbied the federal government, the Department of Energy, because that's who DOE reports to, or to BPA reports to say, and lobbied them to say, hey, look it. This is not taxpayer funded. This is ratepayer funded. And so we think those efforts help because they actually got the probationary employees back. They were actually able to rehire those employees.
John, with the increase in rates, and you said half of it goes to industrial,
Roughly half of our power costs go to the industrial class.
what kind of impact does that have on one of our largest employers of Cascade Steel?
So right now, we're probably looking at somewhere, and power, the way power is structured, it's how you use it and when you use it. So their rate impact will be higher than the residential and general service rate impact. And we're probably looking at somewhere in the low 11 to 12%. In that range someplace.
Thank you. Councillor Tukolsky?
Yes, sir, thank you for being here, and also thank you for the exceptional service through Mac Water and Light. I've appreciated it for decades. My question is, if we have a $3 million rate increase coming to you, how much of that's being passed on to the consumers here in McMinnville, and do you have like an average percentage of increase, or are we too early in that game?
We're too early. We're right now doing our electric cost of service analysis. But what the commission, and the mayor sits on the commission, what has historically happened with the commission is they don't like to have rate increases higher than about 5%. So typically what they would do is they would cover that cost through reserves till the next year. So typically, if we have, say we have an 8%, they would probably look at splitting that into like a 4 and a 4 over 2 years. That's historically what they've done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and presenting, and thank you to Water and Light. You guys do a great job.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move on to reports from counselors on committees and on board assignments. I'm going to start this direction. Counselor Geary.
Kind of between meetings, visit McMinnville, nothing for the month since last update. 3rd Street improvement scheduled there, I believe it's the final meeting, but April 14th, 1 p.m. Zoom only will be the next meeting for 3rd Street improvement. Stormwater hasn't had a scheduled meeting, and then MURAC, we had a meeting, and the primary bulk of MURAC was to discuss the subcommittee's recommendation to MURAC, and then further that recommendation up to council to negotiate with the RFP provider, and I think we're going to be hearing plenty about that, so it'll come to us and we'll have plenty of discussion, but a good discussion on the merits and a lot of the data and finances around that, again, that I'm sure will be coming back to us. The other, so with Palindrome, and then the other item on there was the approved a grant forgivable loan to the Piquette Hotel project. That'll be kicking off here shortly down on Alpine. And that's the MURAC update. Thank you.
Counselor Tukolsky.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The Airport Commission has not met since we last spoke, but the YCOM Executive Board did meet today. And we have budgeting starting on May 20th, and there is a percentage increase that's been proposed that's different than the last time. I'll let Finance Director Henry comment if she wishes, otherwise I won't push that number out yet. The other thing is we have a Vision RMS upgrade that's coming, which is the CAD system that's used for the dispatch of both fire and police. And then we also worked with the Budget Committee today to bring in 3 new members. Rachel King, who is the mayor of Amity, is on the Budget Committee now. Greg Garvin is the chief of police in Yemo, and he's also returning. And Ken Huffer, who was just here, has been reappointed as the budget chair. So that's my update from the YCOM Executive Board.
Thank you. Counselor Payne.
Landscape review meets tomorrow, and LIPSIC meets next week, and audit committee's done for the year.
Counselor Peralta.
Excuse me. Planning Commission met last week. There was a really interesting work session on the city's housing production strategies, which are mandated by the state in order to access funding. The staff discussed 16 recommendations for expanding housing inventory and the timeline for rolling those out, both in terms of coming to council and the staff's work plan. There was a pretty troubling discussion about some state mandates that are being considered legislatively that would significantly restrict the city's ability to implement planning priorities and could affect funding for planning, not just in McMinnville, but statewide. That bill, forgetting the number, 2432, I think, passed in a House committee this week, and I wanted to flag it for the council's attention because based on conversations with the mayor and city manager, I'm intending to lobby on the bill when it goes to the Senate.
Counselor Chenoweth.
Not meaning to be thick, but lobby in opposition. Okay, thank you. I have nothing to report.
Counselor Cunningham.
Yeah, similar to Sal's comment on the planning, affordable housing also went over the same housing production strategy that we all went through. So I've gotten lots of that. Then housing landmarks, I got to actually experience the first kind of like home renovation application and came to really truly appreciate both the homeowners and how we are, both the homeowners and the city is really committed to preserve these historic landmarks. and they really took it from the history of McMinnville, and I think that it's a unique opportunity to both preserve the homes that are there, but then make them livable for today's basic standards. And so it was really amazing to see how that committee worked to work with the homeowners in the same time of trying to preserve the homes. So.
Councilor Chenoweth?
I'm sorry. Is it too late for public testimony on that bill?
Yes, on the House, but it will be available.
So could we get talking points and bill numbers emailed to us so that those of us that are willing to drop public testimony can do so?
Jody could maybe do that. That is a yes from Heather Richards. So I'm going to report, as mayor, I don't sit on very many committees, just a couple. Most of my time is with citizens and other entities. So I just wanted to go through a few things that I did in the last 2 weeks. I met with Provoking Hope and toured their new facility. We had good conversations in regards to solutions for some of the garbage, the loitering, and future efforts that we could do together. I attended municipal court. I spoke at McMinnville Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs Committee along with Representative Elmer. I attended and spoke at the Vietnam Traveling Wall event along with Representative Elmer. I met with Head Start Executive Director Susie Linsmeyer. She has a lot of energy and they have a great program over there for kids in our community. I met with Kit Johnston twice, and I also met with Bubba King, Commissioner King. I met with the MDA Board President and Visit McMinnville Executive Director to talk about issues to improve our downtown area. And I meet weekly. One of the committees that I am on is the Legislative Committee, which again deals with issues such as what Councilor President Peralta mentioned with federal and state grants as well. So now I'm going to go to our directors, and I'm going to start with Claudia.
Yes, if you haven't already, reminder of the SCI filings, so statement economic, oh my gosh, I just, impacts statements. Those need to be filed on April 15th, so just a reminder to make sure you get those in.
Director Hunsaker?
Yes, stormwater work session next week. City engineer and I will be bringing the final PAC recommendations to the council. Also kind of a big step in the solids project out of the wastewater treatment plant. They just started their clean water testing today, so putting all the whole project through the pumps and everything with clean water before we get messy out there. But that started today, which was great. And then we have a construction contract for council consideration tonight. Was a very competitive bid, which was good to see because we have two more projects, the ARPA Midtown Basin Stormwater Project and our annual pavement patching project that are going out for bid tomorrow.
Thank you. Attorney David Langberg.
Thank you, Mayor. The legal department has been putting together some code related to the surplusage of personal property, which has long been a something missing from the city's procurement policies. That's being reviewed and commented on by staff and should hopefully be before you all next month.
Thank you. City Manager Jeff Towery.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll note that the quarterly report I submit to the council is in your inboxes. Sent that out this afternoon for your review. And much as General Manager Dietz was here tonight, I'll be reporting to the Water and Light Commission at their meeting next week.
Thank you. Finance Director Katie Henry.
I'll start with municipal court. So municipal court, as most of you know, has a very small staff, and still very small because we haven't filled the vacant position that they've had in light of the budget constraints. And the recent canine activity around town has significantly increased their amounts of questions from the public, requests from the public. So their workload is quite heavy right now in dealing with a lot of the questions and requests and things like that. So nothing that can be done right now, just letting you all know that they are stretched thin right now and handling, much like this affects the police and it affects administration, it's also affecting our court in that they are having more requests related to this. On the finance team right now, we're focusing, of course, mainly on budget and what's happening there, but also on how do we as a finance team get more out to all of the departments and get our faces known. So you will see more faces around City Hall. We're making sure that we have someone in the office every day in finance, and all days except for Friday, there should be 2 people in the office at any given time. And then we're also planning to begin doing some face-to-face work with the departments, keeping the training up and things like that to give more of a personal aspect to finance. And then the final piece that we're working on is cross-training and making sure that we have backup for all of the positions in finance.
Director Richards?
Thank you, Mayor and councilors. A couple of things. You heard tonight about a survey we have underway right now for the Innovation Campus project. We're in the master planning of those 200 acres to understand the public infrastructure needed to support them. The survey is available until April 11th. You can find it on iheartmac.org. We have about 350 responses right now, and our goal is 500. So feel free to share and encourage people to participate. We are collecting those answers. Also wanted to let you know I'll be testifying on behalf of the city next week with the Ways and Means Committee on capital projects that we submitted to the state for some funding. We're allowed to testify for 2 minutes on one project, so we're testifying on our priority project, which is funds to help us design and finish construction of Alpine Avenue, the last 4 blocks of it, as we're looking at redevelopment in that area. And then lastly, I wanted to share with you that we are in the process of developing an event for Arbor Day. This will be our 28th year being a Tree City USA here in McMinnville. April 25th is Arbor Day. We're planning an event for that afternoon at 4:30 at the library in City Park. We are also proclaiming Arbor Day as Robert Stevenson Day, and we're going to be celebrating him and all of his effort and work that he's done for the city in terms of our landscaping and trees in our community. 4:30 at the park, if people come down, we'll be planting 2 trees in the honor of Robert Stevenson. We'll also have tabletops from different nonprofits in the community that are doing landscaping and trees around the city, and there will be an opportunity for a nature hike and scavenger hunt for children. So we encourage people to participate.
Thank you. Chief Wood?
Police Department lost 2 employees this week. We lost our officer in training earlier this week, but we do have several other folks in various stages of the hiring process and are looking to fill that position. The other one, a little happier note, our canine detection, drug detection dog Tucker retired after 10 years of service to the McMinnville community this week, and we're also looking at applicants to fill his position as well. So.
Awesome. Director Muir?
Thank you, Mayor and councilors. Just wanted to say thank you for those of you that attended the retirement party on Friday. It was a lovely event and sent a legacy of employees out the door, so thank you for that. If you did come, you may have noticed that our elevator is out at the community center. It has been out since February 19th. We are really struggling right now at the community center. You all remember that you allocated some ARPA dollars from the library to the elevator. We now know that even with that allocation, we are $97,000 short of what it will take to fix the elevator, and that it's a timeline of 6 to 8 months before we can get that elevator operating. There are no good options right now for what we can do. We've looked at closing 2 floors. We've been looking at other spaces to rent. Right now, we're keeping it as is and helping people up and down the stairs that would normally use the elevator, including carriages with parents that are going down to Tiny Tots. And just as a reminder, the rental revenue at the community center, the actual revenue in 2023 was about $50,000. And with the elevator down, we are trying to do our best to let people know it's down. We don't know when it's going to be back up, but it is impacting our revenue. And I foresee that going into the future if it's going to take 6 to 8 months to get it fixed. So we may be having more conversations about that. We have let the public know. We've posted it on our webpage, it's on our door, and we're just trying to do our best to live within the building as it is.
Director Berg?
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. I have props. An apple peeler that you can get from the Library of Things. And then once you peel your apples, maybe not you all, but somebody you know maybe could use a baby food processor that comes with a book about organic baby food, and those things can be checked out from the Library of Things. And you may be surprised to find that the library still does have books. And we are partnering with the school district and a grassroots organization, Raising Resilience, and the library received a grant to purchase a number of books that was that was sort of the impetus for this Raising Resilience organization, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, and we have over 150 books in English and I think about 50 books in Spanish and audio and electronic books that we're sharing around the community to increase the discussion and knowledge about this Raising Resilience, which is primarily about the effects of technology and social media on kids these days. Thanks.
Thank you, Jenny. Director Lofgren, you're back there. Do you have any?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Vicki Hedges, I see you on Zoom. Do you have anything?
Hopefully my audio is working. Yes?
Yep, yes. I can hear you.
Perfect. So lots of things happening in HR. Later this week, we are starting the first round of interviews for the Parks and Rec Director position. We'll start that round with that interview process with a small group of individuals, and we will be interviewing 6 candidates for this round. And then once we have our final candidates, we'll move forward with finalizing the process, including the traditional meet and greet that we include council for.
Thank you. Did I miss anyone? I just want to say thank you to all of you directors for your reports tonight. They were fabulous and interactive for us, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on. We have one item on the consent agenda. Sorry. Do I have anybody that would like that removed from the consent?
Mayor, you skipped the 5D. The continued discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Were you going to bring that up, Mr. Chenoweth?
It's on your agenda. So
Sorry. I'm like, shoot. Okay, so at our last council meeting, Councilor Chenoweth requested that we all think about considering moving our meetings to a different day than Tuesdays. And I put that out for all of you to think about and come back for a discussion. And now I would like to open the floor up for a discussion. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to say? Councilor Cunningham.
The only thing that I'd like to say, and I think Chris brought this up when he brought it up before, is that if we do move it, that the city council and the work session end up on the same day, so we don't have like one on one day and one on the other day in the week.
Do you have something?
I didn't
Councilor
have
Peralta?
any, thank you. I didn't have any issues with moving the date generally. I did have concerns based on the staff comments about moving it to Mondays, because that seemed to create a workflow issue for Claudia and for others. So beyond that, I don't really have an opinion.
Councilor Geary?
Yeah, just from my 2 cents, my perspective, I feel pretty strongly against moving it, and I think it should stay on the schedule. We're all pretty dynamic. People have pretty dynamic schedules, and I've built my life around this commitment, and moving it would change into that. So I think what do we have other than consistency so consistently? So I think keeping it on the same schedule would be my vote.
Thank you. Counselor Tukalski, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I'd also like to keep it on the same schedule because the impact to the entire city and also the staff and the councils and everything just seems extremely large to me. So I would prefer to keep it where it is.
Thank you. Counselor Payne?
I could go either way. I, like all of us, have kind of built my life around the current schedule. The Wednesday thing kind of throws me off, you know, second Tuesday, fourth Tuesday, third Wednesday, kind of wonkies me up a little bit. But I may just be wonky in spite of that. I think also reconciling it with other committees and things that meet, you know, like airport commissions, a meeting, it's an evening commitment, right? And then sometimes planning and historic landmarks can turn into long meetings. So I would just encourage everybody to sort of be mindful of the other obligations that there already are. But I could go either way.
My opinion is that we leave it how it is, and I appreciate that I was giving you the opportunity to bring it up. But my personal opinion is to leave it how it is for multiple reasons. Number one, I wouldn't want to go to Mondays because of holidays, and we would be moving the meeting multiple times, and staff would have a difficulty on that. I think the citizens, we've really engaged the citizens to be able to attend our meetings and know when they are, and to change that would be a big shift for them, and also committee meetings. So that's my personal opinion. So I guess if we went from here, it would have to be, oh, go ahead.
I just, is there anything from City Manager Towery on how the staff would be impacted?
Particularly changing the meetings to Monday would push back our deadlines, would make us less able to be flexible when there were late changes to the agenda. I could foresee it, we'd be seen as a less nimble organization. And just as an example, there are four Mondays in 2025 that are holidays, and so we'd have to move those meetings. And so if it's a Monday meeting, you're going to be moving several meetings every year anyway, and there's the potential for another 2 or 3 holidays that are date specific to sometimes fall on Mondays.
Councilor Chenoweth?
So yeah, I as soon as you said that on last week, that Mondays would be a problem, I would concur with that. I wonder about Wednesdays. If we align them to where all 3 meetings are all Wednesdays, rather than, again, Tuesday, Wednesday, Tuesday, if all 3 are Wednesday, 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 does that conflict with anything that we currently have? And in terms of how that would impact the public, I think it would be easier on the public if all the meetings are the same day each week, rather than this. I mean, it's already a hodgepodge for us, and we do it every month. I can't imagine how the community feels about it.
Any other comments? Councilor Gary?
Despite the name of the date other than Tuesday, my thoughts remain the same on not moving it.
Councilor Tukalski?
Councilor Geary and I agree. I would like to remain where we are because we've built our lives around these schedules. And Councilor Chenoweth, I apologize for that, but it's where I stand.
Do you have anything to add, Councilor Payne? Nope. Nope.
I appreciate the opportunity. Now I'm doing what you do, Sal. I appreciate the opportunity to have the discussion. I wish there was more flexibility, but I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask one last?
Councilor Payne?
Thank you. Sorry, I just had a thought. Councilor Chenoweth, is timing of the day the concern? Like, I'm sure it was discussed and I'm still trying to catch up.
I didn't publicly state what it was because I didn't want to go down that path, but
I don't think you need to state the conflict, but if timing is, like, if the time of day is not ideal,
yeah,
there are several councils across the state that meet during business hours.
Yeah, I think meeting in the evening is easier for our constituents. It takes it to where folks that are at work can come here, and I think that's an important consideration. It's a personal commitment. It's a commitment that I've had for 27 years of my life, and that I didn't ask for that to change from Thursdays to Tuesdays. It changed on me halfway through after I'd already registered to run again, and I was already on the ballot. So I was like, well, the least I can do is ask to see if there was some willingness on behalf of my fellow counselors to make a move. So thank you.
I appreciate you sharing that. That's all.
All right, now we're going to go to the consent agenda. Resolution 2025-10. Does any council request to have this item removed from the consent agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
So I have a Counselor Geary and a second from Counselor Peralta.
Counselor Cunningham,
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky,
Aye.
Counselor Chenoweth,
Aye.
Counselor Payne,
Aye.
Counselor Geary,
Aye.
and Council President Peralta.
Aye.
The consent agenda has passed unanimously.
Thank you. Now I'd like to call on Katie Henry, Finance Director, to present a resolution 2025-11, a resolution establishing a stormwater utility fund and stormwater capital fund.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This resolution is very straightforward and simple in its purpose. It is for accounting purposes to create these funds so that we can move forward with the proposed budget process. We can't move the proposed budget forward in the printing of it until this fund is legally created, because we have, as you know, you've approved a capital project for stormwater using ARPA funds. This is to be put forward in '26, when the work is supposed to be done. And so we have more conversation to be had. In fact, next week, there's a work session on it. But to have all of that, we need the infrastructure, as in the accounting infrastructure, in place to be able to account for these stormwater activities. We're not proposing any revenues besides the ARPA transfer of funds to pay for this in the capital fund. We're not proposing any other funding mechanism of any kind. This resolution is just to create the operating and the capital funds for stormwater in order to account for these activities.
Did you hear the slurry of little talks over here? Any counselors have any questions?
I do have a question.
Counselor Tukolsky.
So Director Henry, thank you for your time. We're establishing basically a vessel in which to move the ARPA funds into the budget, is that correct?
This is a vessel for that and for any future conversations regarding handling stormwater. So for example, if we were to have stormwater operations where we needed to transfer money in from general fund, from anywhere, so say there was a hole in the street, then we would be able to use this fund to transfer the money in. It allows us the visibility to be able to account for those transactions in their own fund, just like we do for sewer transactions in their fund. We just don't have a fund for it right now.
Okay, so this isn't authorizing any kind of fees?
This is not authorizing any. I want to make that clear because I know we haven't finished that discussion.
Right.
And so that's not what this is authorizing. It is just the creation of the fund. There's no revenue tied to this resolution or authorization.
Yes, I did.
Counselor Payne.
Sorry, squirrel.
Shiny.
Pull it together. Back in business. So I understand this is relatively specific to accounting. I just want to clarify, because there's 30,000 foot discussions about the utility itself and the creation of that. So my question is, does creating the fund for your purposes, not for GEOF's purposes, open up any opportunities for grants or making it easier to track funds that are specific to the stormwater utility?
It makes it much easier to track all activity related to the stormwater utility, whether it's grants, transfers, any of that.
So would there be more potential or any
altered potential, I guess, to us getting grants. And maybe this is more that 30,000 foot question is, if we have the utility, is there potential for additional funding? Okay. That was a head shake for those who,
was gonna say, I
for those who didn't see it.
Is
Okay.
it a yes or a no shake? No. Okay.
Thank you.
Counselor Chenoweth?
So I assume that the reason why this is coming before us is by statute. We have to approve the creation of a fund within the budget.
It's coming to you before the work session and all of that for timing so that we can publish the budget document. We have to have a fund before I can create a public document that has that fund in it.
Right, but you can't just create that by statute. We have to create
That's
it.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Scott, did you have something? No. Okay. Counselor Tukalski?
So in the past, we've operated out of the general fund and for stormwater repair,
No, unfortunately, it's been operating out of the wastewater fund.
wastewater fund.
And my role as finance director, I have to let you know that I'm not comfortable with it being operated out of the wastewater fund according to my knowledge of utility funds and what is allowable and recommended.
Okay. So are we, and I agree with your premise there that it should have its separate fund. Is it actually required for us to transfer the ARPA funds into that and then utilize them, or are we able to utilize them otherwise? It seems like a nice to have, not a need. Am I right or wrong on that one?
I'm going to say it's more of a transparency so that we have a separate line item to show the funds.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Is it?
but I
Yeah.
don't know that to be true.
Which,
I asked that question, didn't I?
You did.
uh-oh.
For that very specific purpose of the ARPA funds and this stormwater, there are other possibilities. But the one that it's currently being accounted in, I would not advise.
I like what you're saying, and I agree with you. But I guess I'm trying to help everyone understand.
Please. Somebody please explain what the
Why?
cryptic messaging is all about?
So stormwater is a utility. We've got many miles of stormwater lines and channels in this community. We have never accounted or reported for it as a separate utility. Notwithstanding the fact that you don't have any operating revenues, we spend money on stormwater every year. And creating a stormwater utility fund, whether or not the council ultimately approves revenue, we will still have expenses. We will either transfer money from the general fund or from the street fund to make stormwater improvements. And this is a tracking, reporting, and transparency issue from our perspective. It is a designated separate utility, and it deserves its own operating and capital funds in our assessment.
Does that answer your question?
Thank you for the clarity.
Yeah. Thank you. I do appreciate that clarification as well. Thanks for the question. Any other questions? No? Okay. Did we have a motion? No.
I'll move
Second.
to do whatever.
You have a question?
No, I said I moved to him before I could finish it. He said second.
I got her talking over here and this over here, so we are a mess tonight. Okay, so I have a motion from Counselor Chenoweth and a second from Counselor Cunningham. Any further discussions, questions?
Just confirming that your the motion was to approve Resolution 2025-11?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Counselor Cunningham?
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Aye.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Counselor Payne? Aye. Counselor Geary?
Aye.
Council President Peralta?
Aye.
Resolution 2025-11 passes unanimously.
I close the city council meeting at 7:57, and thank you all for your entertainment.